What's going on, guys? Welcome to video log number 8. In this video, I'm actually largely going to be talking about stuff that's going on in the interior. I'm also going to be showing a little bit of my Infiniti G35 pedal that I have installed in the car. That it's from the 03 to 06 Infiniti G35s. It's a direct bolt-in. All I have to do is just bend the pedal away from the floorboard a little bit. So I'll show that, and then I'm also going to show my fuel pump setup and the screws that I bought to hold it down. They're actually from a Yamaha R6, but they color match with the green and black that's on the fuel pump. So I'm going to show that. Getting into the interior and talking about how I've mounted the factory ECU and the Haltech and my little expander box that I bought because I needed more inputs and outputs because of all the sensors that I have in my wideband. So all that stuff I'm going to be showing, like basically how I've mounted it in the IS300, like in the interior, but also like where I've mounted them. But they're pretty difficult to get to, so it's not like somebody could be like, hey, I watched that guy on YouTube, I know where he's got all this expensive stuff mounted in his car, I'm just going to smash his window and take it. Like, no, it's pretty difficult to get to. So it's I try to keep that in mind because I do make YouTube videos right now. They're not ridiculously popular, but who knows where YouTube land is, you know, like what's going to happen. So in order to get cruise control to work, I needed the brake switch and the clutch switch. So now we're coming in here. I've gotten rid of the racing seat, as you can tell. I traded a girl locally. She liked the racing seat and she had all black leather interior, so she was okay with trading her black leather interior for my racing seat with the rest of my interior. So we traded stuff. So in order to get the cruise control to work, I had to run a brake pedal switch, clutch pedal switch, and either a neutral switch or set up gear detection with gear ratios in the Haltech. Now, whenever I make a video on the cruise control and how that's all set up, I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail, but basically you need those three things. I was actually looking into setting up because I have a Hurst shifter on my T56 transmission, and it's got these little stoppers on the front and the back so that you don't shift too far. It's like it stops the shifter from going back whenever it goes back as far as it's supposed to. Those are adjustable. So I wanted to put little switches in there, run that through a relay, and make my own neutral switch, but I ended up just going with the gear detection and the gear ratio setup. Because you basically, in Haltech software, you select gear detection and you also select gear ratios as the two functions that you enable. And then you have to select gear detection as RPM drop or gear ratio. No, you have to select gear detection as gear ratios and then set up your gear ratios in the software. I'll go through all that more in its own video, but also had to run a brake pedal and a clutch pedal switch, which that was tricky because my last few inputs that I had on the Haltech were negative. I could only put a ground connection into the Haltech. Whenever something switches ground on or off, it would tell the Haltech if the brake is pressed or the clutch is pressed. The problem with that was my brake pedal and my clutch pedal both have positive feeds going into them. So I had to run that through a relay. So basically my positive feed turns on a relay and it activates a ground signal that goes through the relay and feeds into the Haltech. I have a video that I'll have in my description where I described that. I think I drew out that video like 10 years ago. It's like a little basics of how relays work, but I basically had to use that video that I made 10 years ago as like, oh, I could do this, and I could just switch the signal from positive to negative so that I could feed it into my regular DPI connection on my expansion box. So that way, otherwise I would be using the AVI connection, and I could just feed that 12 volt signal into that AVI connection, and it could just be like it would just sense the state if it's like voltage is 12 volts or not 12 volts. I had to set that stuff up just to get my cruise control to work, so that's been a lot of work just getting the cruise control to work. So as far as interior wiring and everything, like it's nice. Like you really can't tell that I have stuff here. I put my factory computer behind this. This is an Atoto Japanese brand, really good. I like their radios. I have one in my FJ Cruiser too. I put the factory computer back there, so it's vertical, right? So it's sitting up where it's like the bottom of it is at the bottom. I had to cut off some plastic on the back side. Let me get this back. I had to cut off the plastic on the back side of this. So this little switch holder thing comes out. I think I cut off about that much plastic on the back side just so that I could put the ECU down there. And also this, I think I'm gonna have to cut the back side off of this because this is not going back as far as it should be. So I'm gonna have to cut that. So I'll have to cut that off. And this is my little tuner yellow wire. There's the Haltech USB for plugging it in. I mounted my gauge here, which is nice because, you know, when you're driving, you just look through. My little alert light would blink there. This would show like my fuel gauge, fuel level stuff. But I like because it's subtle, but it also has like a bright light that'll show here if I have any warnings or faults or anything. And it's fully configurable there, but it's also Wi-Fi, and it would send, it can be configurable, but it would send sensor data to the Atoto because this is an Android. It's an Android head unit. It's got the Android app installed for the Haltech, so I can configure it here. I can display stuff there instead of trying to look at it here and look around my steering wheel. I just look at it there. My Haltech engine management is actually mounted back here, flush with this, but mounted to that bracket that is behind this panel, and that bracket actually has to be taken off. So the panel has to be taken off, the bracket has to be taken off just to get to it. So it takes a little bit of time to get to it, but it's nice. So that's there. My fuse box for everything is here. I have to figure out where to put that. So my expansion box is back here too, and then my little can splitter is also back here with different things plugged into it. And wideband is going to be mounted flush. So my wideband controller I'm going to be mounting back there. You can see that that's what I have that's sitting over there. Some of these wires I have to remove. I have to figure out what they go to. There used to be some sound system stuff installed in the car that I took out. So I'm going to take those wires out because it looks like those are sound system related and I don't need them. But yeah, so there's the wideband controller there. And I'm actually going to mount it up there to the whatever is out of the way that I can mount it to. In hindsight, I actually should have bought the R3 unit because separately I bought the Elite 2500 Haltech, and then my expansion box I bought this wideband control and a can splitter. But the R3 can support multiple cans. It has its own wideband, and also it has more inputs and outputs than the Elite 2500. All those things together, it actually would have cost a little bit less had I bought that. So in hindsight, I probably should have gone with the R3. I'll have a picture popping up at the back side of the gauges, but basically I have 4 lights, little lights that I have that are controlled by the IS300 ECU. I have power going to them separately because they're all positive switched bulbs. They're not ground switched bulbs, and the Haltech ECU needs them to be ground switched bulbs. So I ran a positive wire up, and I have little bulb wires that there's like basically the little fixtures that holds the bulb, and it's got 2 wires coming out of the back of it. But my track off switch, so this, whenever it's pressed, this is a momentary press button, so I'm hoping that Haltech will sense that this is momentary press and then turn traction on or off. I guess we'll see. There's probably a way to set that up where it stays on even though it's a momentary press. So there's that. So it's I might have to replace that though for an actual track off, on and off switch that like clicks on, clicks off, and it's not momentary press. But I'll have a light that comes on that says my traction control is off, and I also have a slip light that will, if my wheels slip at all, then I'll get some little light that shows up there that shows like, oh, you had some wheel slippage. Fuel light is another one of those, and then my cruise control output light, which isn't necessary, but it's there. So cruise control output light. Fuel gauge is not going to work. It's just going to be showing whatever it's going to show whenever it's disconnected. So that's that. My check engine light is fed straight from the Haltech, but I also have, since the Haltech has an OBD connector, I have this OBD plug here that I'm going to plug into my little CAN extension bus that I have down there, so that I will have a way that you could plug a scan tool into that diagnostic port and show whatever check engine lights are on. If I don't have my laptop with me, I'll have like my little scan tool, my little Bluetooth scan tool with me. And this is the fun thing that I was talking about. So this goes to the G35 pedal, and that is the G35 pedal down there. It's from 03 to 06 G35, which I think might have been a typo on the eBay listing. So yeah, so that's the G35 pedal. That's it all the way to the floor. That's how it naturally sits, but it bolts in and it sits exactly like that. I've got it tightened up. It's got its own little stopper, as you can see behind it. So it hits the carpet, which means I can take out that rubber one. That's the IS300 one, but basically I have to bend that shaft up, and it looks like that's all I have to do is bend the shaft up and then bend the pedal back where it's facing the direction that it should be facing. But that's all I have to do is bend that, and I should just be able to put it into a vise, bend it, and then test fit it a couple times. But I'll have a video coming up on that and getting that to work in the IS300. But it's great. Like, one, you can only do it if you have a Haltech, because you have to wire it in, right? Because you can't run the Toyota TPS sensor on it. I mean, you could do another engine management. It doesn't have to be a Haltech, but it has to be an engine management. After that's done, and after it's bent up, then it looks like it's going to work great. My clutch is all the way to the floor right now because I have the it's not fully connected, and I have it out of the way just so that I can do all the stuff that I need to under there. But I need to figure out how to mount this fuse box. That's a thing. That's a little thing. Also coming up, I'm going to be doing my fuel system setup, which I'm not going to show me bending the lines and putting them in place, because that's just going to be a pain with me rolling around under the car. But what I do want to talk about is something that didn't come in the kit. These are the original screws for the fuel pump, for the IS300 fuel pump hanger. They're too short, right? Because when you put them here, the threads aren't even long enough to reach the top of the gas tank, because this is thick and it's machined. They don't send you new screws with this. This is Aerosport Engineering's one. So Autosport's Engineering one. So these are the same diameter, and they're green. They're green, so they match. They're like matchy-matchy. Oh, error. Don't want that. I don't need that anyway. But yeah, so they're green. These are the dress-up bolts for a Yamaha R6 windscreen, and they came with these little like rubber things to screw into. But I'm not using them on a Yamaha R6. They're the same size that I need. These are M5, and they're the depth that I need. I could basically just screw them in here, just like I have that one there. Screw them in, and it holds the fuel pump hanger down, and it's fine. And these are facing forward, so the cover that I have here, the metal cover, still goes on top and bolts down. But yeah, this is actually really cool that this. So these are just some extra screws that I had lying around that I've got it secured, because I didn't want a gas smell filling the car. So I have it kind of tightened up right now. But yeah, so I'll have a video coming up talking about that. But anyway, that's it for this video log number 8. Make sure you check out my last video if you wanted to see more about the engine wiring and everything that went into that. And then that's video log number 7. And then my next video is video log number 9, that I will be talking a lot about the transmission stuff and the CAGS system, which is like an extra solenoid that basically, I don't know a lot about it, but in the 90s Chevys that had the CAGS solenoid, it does something with slowing down the revving of the transmission. So computer aided granny shifter, I don't know what I don't remember what it stands for. Gear selecting, not gear selecting, whatever it is. Yeah, the next video I'll be talking a lot about the transmission and just setting that up for the 2JZ, and the adapter that I had to get for the bell housing to mount to the 2JZ, to mount the transmission to the 2JZ, the clutch that I had to get, the pilot bearing, and my little sub harness that I still have to make for the transmission, but it's not going to be very difficult. So Anyway, that's it for this video though. Thanks a lot for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and as always, God bless you guys.